very carefully craft any responses that occur to the present economic situation. But we should keep it all in perspective, because even though there'll be a lot of focus on Pennsylvania today because of that Senate race, there ought to be some focus too on some of the other races. Looking just across the border, for example, in New Jersey, Governor Florio deliberately made that a referendum on President Bush, and we went from a minority in both houses of the legislature to veto-proof majorities. So the message in New Jersey was diametrically opposed to the message in Pennsylvania.
Let's get back to Pennsylvania. Ron Brown, I understand you were chuckling a bit. How do you read the results there?
Well, the results are very clear. I don't know what election Clayton Yeutter was looking at. A clear victory for the Democratic Party. The bellwether test, everybody said it beforehand, was the Pennsylvania election. I think the voters of Pennsylvania said that George Bush has been a one-dimensional president, and he's headed for a one-term presidency. It seems to me that Harris Wofford ran on our issues. He ran on getting the economy back on track, on national health care, on paying attention to the everyday problems of everyday working American men and women and working families who are struggling to make ends meet in this Republican recession.
But can you really say the president is in trouble based on one Senate race?
No, it's not based on one Senate race, Katie. It's based on everything we're hearing around the country. This was really a test race. Here was George Bush's hand-picked candidate, Dick Thornburgh, with George Bush going into the state, with Dan Quayle going into the state, with Republican cabinet members going in. The same thing in Kentucky, frankly. The two places where George Bush and members of the cabinet spent the most time were Pennsylvania and Kentucky. In Kentucky, Brereton Jones, the Democrat, won an overwhelming victory. So all the signals were clear in Tuesday's election. And yes, George Bush is in trouble, and he should be, because he's got no solution for the economic problems in America.
But as Chairman Yeutter pointed out, Mr. Brown, the Democrats did not come out of yesterday's election unscathed. They lost the Mississippi governor's mansion and the New Jersey legislature.
Well, I'm disappointed about Mississippi. I think Ray Mabus was a great governor, and he's a good friend. I wish he had won. But frankly, I think the Republicans ought to be ashamed of that race. The same kind of racial politics was played by the Republican candidate for governor in Mississippi, as the Republican candidate for governor, David Duke, is playing next door in Louisiana. It's a disgrace, and I hope now that George Bush has canceled his Asian trip and is going to spend a little time at home, that he'd go down there to Louisiana and try to make sure that David Duke is defeated in that race.
Chairman Yeutter, you want to respond to that?
Well, I sure do, because, Katie, every time the Democrats lose a race, they charge racism, and that's just most unfortunate. Kirk Fordyce became the first Republican governor in 100 years in Mississippi, but he did it because he was an excellent businessman candidate, not because he was running a racist campaign. And I think Ron also tends to forget that in Kentucky, that was a race that was decided primarily on check bouncing by our congressional candidate, and that probably sends more signals to his party than to ours.
Mr. Yeutter, let's talk about Louisiana, if we could, and a man named David Duke, former Grand Wizard of the KKK and ex-Nazi. The president has disassociated himself from his candidacy, but he refuses to endorse his opponent, Edwin Edwards. Why not let principles overrule politics in this case?
Well, the people of Louisiana should make their own decision, and I hope they will do that wisely next week. But the fact is, I believe the president has disavowed David Duke and condemned him in every way possible. We simply should not elect people like that to high office or any office in this country, and we hope the people of Louisiana will have the good judgment to make that decision next week. We live in a democratic society. They should make that judgment on their own.
Would you urge Republicans to vote for Edwin Edwards over Duke?
If I were making a personal decision, I would do that unequivocally, even though I would be voting for someone in the other party.
All right, Ron Brown, we only have a few seconds left. You've given New York Governor Mario Cuomo till the end of this week to make up his mind. Do you think you're going to get an answer?
Well, I would hope so. I think the sooner we have our field completed, the better it'll be. Nobody can give Mario Cuomo orders. He's going to do it in his own time frame. I just hope he does it sooner rather than later. If he does it, I think he'll be a very formidable candidate for our party's nomination.
No one's going to give him orders, but I'm sure you'd like to at this point.
I sure would like to have him do it very soon.
All right, Ron Brown, Clayton Yeutter, thank you both so much. We've got much more ahead right after these messages.
Good game, good friends. And now that I use Fix-It-In, I can tell the ref what I really think.
Fix-It-In and forget it.
Are you nuts?
before I switched to fixing it.
In this campaign.
Mario Cuomo is still hanging in the shadows. Would you like to see him get into this race?
Yes, I would. I think it would give the voters a choice of people, of a governor of New York, governor of California, with the varied experiences that we bring. And I think in that contest, I can offer a real alternative. California was a creative, innovative place during my tenure as governor, and I think that's what's missing now in Washington, that welcoming of new ideas and new initiatives.
Jerry, I hate to cut you off.
Hey, thank you very much.
Jerry Brown, thanks for joining us. We'll be back. We're heading in that direction.
I think it already is a national issue, and it's a debate that should be held in the country. From my perspective, we want to be sure that the American people are given full and accurate information so that they will support whatever changes we come forward with.
Louis Sullivan, thank you very much.
If you're a woman or there's a woman in your life who has a drinking or other drug problem, Women's Recovery Center has developed 3 programs, one of which should meet the unique needs of any woman seeking recovery. Daytime outpatient. You're at home at night with your family. Evening outpatient. You can work days or go to school and still get well. Inpatient. For those requiring more intensive care. For information, please call Women's Recovery Center.
U.S. Ford, backed by popular demand at Terry Crest Crossroads and Ford Dodge, push it forward.
It's a birthday, and the cards and gifts that make a birthday special are at your Hallmark store. See you at Hallmark.
Life and death of Robert Maxwell after a station break.
What's hotter than sex? The battle of the sexes. Man versus woman. In the bedroom, at work, at play. An all-out battle of the sexes. All this week in a closer look.
I believe that the
served in a freshly baked bun or croissant. And with a Barnard sandwich, try our delicious homemade soups and desserts. Why Barnard's? Homemade goodness, fast food convenience. Barnard's, just south of Douglas and Burl Hay Road.
You may have heard from a friend. Perhaps you saw the ad in today's Des Moines Register from Pigeons Furniture and Appliances. Well, don't go to Pigeons until noon tomorrow. They'll do it tomorrow for 12 astonishing hours from noon until midnight tomorrow night.
Pigeons will close early tonight. They'll work into the night, reducing prices, bringing new selections to the showroom floors. It's tomorrow, noon till midnight. They're pulling out all the stops. See that ad from Pigeons in today's Des Moines Register. It's tomorrow, noon till midnight.
In Ottumwa, tune to Channel 23 for better reception of TV8.
Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I got a beautiful feeling. Everything's going my way.
It's the cast of the Broadway hit The Secret Garden singing our theme. Welcome back to CBS This Morning. I'm Harry Smith.
And I'm Edie Magnus. Paula Zahn is in Albertville, France. She'll report live from there tomorrow. Some people have all the luck.
Man, not bad. Have you ever seen The Secret Garden?
No.
Great show. Great show. Especially little kids. Really terrific. Also, coming up just ahead, can kidney beans control a form of diabetes? Or broccoli help fight arthritis? Or licorice heal an ulcer? Stay tuned for some surprising information from Dr. Bob Arnotts.
At this year's U.S. Open, Jennifer Capriati really captured the crowd, beating some of the heaviest hitters in women's tennis. In just a few minutes, we'll ask the teenage star, what's next? Plus, with Dustin Hoffman and Bruce Willis, Billy Bathgate has some pretty good acting talent. But is the movie any good? Our critic Gene Siskel will have a review. Right now, though, here's the morning news this morning. Voters in Washington state seem to have stepped back this morning from the controversial initiatives many had predicted they would approve. Ron Allen reports from Seattle.
True to their populist tradition, a huge number of Washington state voters went to the polls. Reformers hoped the citizen initiative process would produce fundamental changes. But it appears they were wrong. As the returns came in, supporters of a measure that would offer terminal patients the option of doctor-assisted suicide tried to remain hopeful.
Initiative 119 has made history. It will be talked about, written about, and remembered for years to come.
But opponents claimed victory.
Washington voters have sent a resounding message to the people of the world. Vote no to legalize killing of the dying, the disabled, and the elderly.
Voters also were unwilling to enact the nation's toughest term limit for state and federal lawmakers. But still, a message may have been delivered.
And maybe, just maybe, their careers and their obsession with re-election will finally be dampened just a little bit.
And a measure that would broaden a woman's right to abortion appears to have produced the closest contact.
Whether it's defeated or not, we still will do everything possible to respect the gift of life in the moment of conception.
A large number of absentee ballots still could affect the outcome of each race. But the results so far seem to say it's a lot easier to put an issue on the ballot than to turn it into a law. Ron Allen, CBS News, Seattle.
In the race to fill Pennsylvania's empty Senate seat, voters rejected a Republican with close ties to the Bush White House. Instead, they handed a solid victory to Harris Wofford, a nearly unknown Democrat who campaigned as a Washington outsider. Even the loser, former Attorney General Dick Thornburgh, concedes he underestimated the vote-getting power of Wofford's middle-class populism. President Bush left the White House this morning for a NATO summit in Rome. Before he left, Mr. Bush expressed his disappointment over the Pennsylvania Senate race.
Chilly morning. I'm depressed over this Thornburgh race because he's such a good man. But you look at the overall record, and what I stand for and what our party stands for had a very good day, thank you. This is a very
Mr. Bush has canceled an upcoming trip to the Far East. This morning he explained he wants to stay in Washington while Congress is in session. President Bush's nominee to head the CIA has one Senate confirmation. Robert Gates was approved yesterday by a vote of 64 to 31. The confirmation came after a 6-month controversy in which Gates was questioned over his role in the Iran-Contra affair. Gates was deputy director of the CIA at that time. Finally, much of the nation remains in a record cold snap this morning. In Minneapolis, days of snow are making the city look more like mid-February than early November. Yipes, look at that. More than 30 inches of snow fell last week. Many roads are still covered with snow and ice, and traffic is a nightmare. State officials say snow cleanup has already cost $3 million. And winter is still more than a month away. And Mark McEwen, it's all your fault.
The amazing thing the snake dances from the World Series have just ended. They've just gotten in from...
The snow started. Thanks, Edie. Good to have you with us this morning.
Yes.
We got out of there just in the nick of time, didn't we?
I got a question for you. For all the people who are following your little boo-boo on your finger, the bandage is off. How's it doing? A boo-boo update.
Much better,
Much better. Good to see you, Harry. Let's do a little wake-up call here. Harry, we're concerned out here in America about your health and well-being. Wake up Austin, Texas, home of Antone's, mostly cloudy, 49 degrees. The Settlement Club's annual garage sale happens this weekend. Proceeds go to the Settlement Home, a center for abused and neglected girls. Very, very good thing right there. Last year they raised over $160,000. Angela Skinner. Hi, Angela. She wrote and told me about it. They watch us on KTBC TV in Austin. And this weather segment is sponsored by Mountain Grown Folgers, Crystals, and Regular and Decaffeinated. Ah, yes, a boo-boo update. Don't you feel better, America, for knowing about Harry's little boo-boo out there? Here's the weather situation. Minneapolis, Minnesota, we've been talking about it. No snow today, but cold up there. Single digits, maybe a little higher than single digits in some areas. It's just going to be pretty nippy. You want a little snow? Hey, head east, young man, or young woman. Head on out to portions of the upper Great Lakes. You'll see a little lake effect snow up there, just kind of a little drifting around. Not really too much to talk about. Nothing compared to what they had a couple of days ago. Prescott will see a high of almost 40. Going to be a wintry type day, an autumnal type day across the Northeast. I love those words. And you'll see a gray day up there and kind of nippy. As you come down through the south, you won't see any precipitation up there, though. Down through the south, you'll see a Gulf Coasty kind of day, but it's going to be a little bit warmer than it has been. Warm down in Miami, high of almost 80. You want snow, my friends? We've got snow for you from, let's see, western Missouri all the way up through the northern Rockies, 1 to 3 inches. And if you want heat, head to the southwest. Going to be just delightful down there. L.A. should hit a high of right around 90 degrees. Hey, Bobba-ree-bop. That's a quick look at the national forecast. Let's take a look at your weather.
More good news, yes. More snow for the state today, 1 to 3 inches in the southwestern counties. Here in central Iowa, about an inch of snow. Temperatures teens to low 20s north, upper 20s to lower 30s across the south. High in Des Moines today around 26 degrees.
Next time we'll have the latest satellite picture for you. Now back to Harry. Harry?
Thanks, Mark. After just 2 years as a pro, tennis star Jennifer Capriati is already ranked number 6 in the world. Jennifer is back home in Florida now, concentrating on being a high school sophomore, and she joins us from the Saddlebrook Resort.
Laurel Cavazos. Finally, after 2 years, Bush dumped Cavazos and named Lamar Alexander, respected for reforming education as governor of Tennessee.
The most important thing that President Bush has done so far is to appoint Lamar Alexander as Secretary of Education. We chose someone who really knew the area, and I think that's a signal that you care.
Little more than a month after being sworn in, Alexander produced America 2000, a plan to reinvent the nation's schools. It calls for national competency tests, national education standards, parental choice of schools, and private funding of a new generation of schools. Now hardly a week goes by without Bush visiting a classroom. Sometimes it's a hard sell.
Are you really the president?
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't you know that? What'd you think, I was a pretending guy? Did you? Did you really think that? Well, heck, how can I prove it to you? I don't have any ID. Would you accept American Express cards?
Experts say Bush deserves credit for being the first president to put education on the national agenda.
Well, I think overall, I would give him a pretty decent grade. It's not all great, but I think that on the plus side, I think he has proposed a reform strategy, America 2000, which actually has some teeth in it.
Candidate Bush made 3 important promises on education funding. First, he promised a $600 million increase in the education budget his first year. And on that, he more than delivered. After years of cuts under Ronald Reagan, education spending has increased about 35% under Bush. Promise number 2, money for college students.
I believe we should have a college savings bond plan to help families save for college.
By the time Bush was inaugurated, a college savings bond plan had already been enacted. However, many families now find it tougher to pay for college because under Bush, federal grants and loans for college students have been reduced. Candidate Bush did somewhat better on promise number 3.
Underprivileged kids need Head Start, and I've proposed to expand that program to a level where all eligible 4-year-olds attend class.
Bush has expanded Head Start, but not as much as he promised. Only 55% of 4-year-olds are now enrolled in the program.
Head Start ought to be more widely available than it is. And I think a lot of people in the administration know that, and others are watching the budget and say we can't afford it.
There's been much more attention to what happens when children get to school than to the various deficits that children suffer in their family situations, mostly because of poverty, that makes it difficult for kids to learn, and I think the president could pay more attention to that.
Candidate Bush had a program to improve the lives and health of these kids. He called it Invest in Our Children. Some of the promises he has kept, some he has not.
The actual performance and the specific proposals have fallen short of the rhetoric. And the sense I get is that the children's health issues are not a priority in the way that things like the space station is.
Bush delivered on his promise of a children's tax credit to help finance daycare. He also came through with more money to feed pregnant women and children, even though the sums are modest. In another area, he hasn't done so well. Listen to candidate Bush.
I think part of the answer to this haunting of these children that are out there and suffering lies in extension of Medicaid.
Specifically, Bush promised to extend Medicaid to all children living in poverty and to expand it to cover all pregnant women and infants with incomes up to 185% of the poverty level. But when these proposals were offered in Congress, the Bush administration opposed them.
I'd overall give him about a C+. Given the magnitude of the problem, what he's proposed has really been very small scale and in some cases would be offset by cuts elsewhere.
So far, Bush gets passing grades, but those are based largely on proposals and good intentions. If Bush really is to be the education president, he will have to show results. For today, Lisa Myers, NBC News, Washington.
Tomorrow morning, our series on the Bush promises looks at how the president has done on environmental issues. Brian's back in a moment with a man who says there was a lot more to Robert Maxwell than met the eye, right after these messages.
In the midday sun, a gentle breeze, the embrace, wide eyes, remember these, the touch